Imagine waking up tomorrow, stripped of your modern conveniences. No plastic-wrapped food waiting at your local US supermarket. How long do you think you would actually last? Most people confidently claim they would just forage plants. They think living on wild salads sounds perfectly fine. And sure, that sounds perfectly reasonable in an apartment. Until you realize the brutal wilderness demands intense energy. Our ancestors faced a much darker and colder reality. They hunted massive beasts for reasons beyond mere meat. Most people have no idea how deep it went. Let us look at the raw mathematics of human evolution and the massive calorie deficit our early ancestors faced. Foraging for wild roots and leafy greens provides basic sustenance, but it is incredibly inefficient when you are trying to power a rapidly mutating biological machine. Growing a larger and fundamentally smarter brain requires a massive and consistent energy surplus that basic foraging simply cannot provide. Around 2 million years ago, the Homo genus unlocked a biological cheat code that changed the trajectory of our species forever. They stopped settling for lean scraps and started accessing the deep, hidden reserves of animal anatomy. They went straight for the bone marrow and dense animal fat. You can think of prehistoric bone marrow as nature's butter. It is an incredibly rich and calorically dense superfood, locked safely inside a skeletal vault. The sheer density of energy found in that animal fat delivered a payload that makes a massive modern double cheeseburger look like a completely negligible diet snack. According to the Journal of Human Evolution, consuming this specific type of high-octane biological fuel provided the exact catalyst required for our brain size to absolutely skyrocket. Your brain is a greedy and energy-devouring engine that constantly demands a massive portion of your daily caloric intake. Without the intense and highly concentrated calories harvested from those hunted animals, our ancestors would have been evolutionarily stuck as small-brained foragers endlessly scratching in the dirt. Those ancient beasts did not just keep our ancestors from starving on freezing nights. They literally provided the physical building blocks for the cognitive engine you are currently using to process these very words. Eating their meat was merely the first and most basic phase of this evolutionary transaction. But here is where it gets even more interesting. Let us step straight into the freezing winds of the North American Ice Age. Picture a solitary Clovis hunter seeking shelter from a brutal winter storm. They did not survive that lethal freeze simply because they had a full stomach of fresh meat. They lived because they possessed the absolute genius to dismantle a massive carcass and utilize every single biological component. Animal fat? That was the ancient world's very first electricity. Elk sinews and tendons? That was their industrial strength rope. Fragments of skeleton? Those were high-tech manufacturing materials. You see, we constantly refer to this era as the Stone Age, but our ancestors absolutely did not build their early world relying only on cold rocks. They engineered their daily survival using the discarded remnants of the massive beasts they hunted. Every single kill was essentially a high-stakes trip to the local hardware store. If our hunter was trapped deep inside a pitch-black cavern, a sharpened rock could never bring the light. Only rendered bear fat could achieve that life-saving miracle. The Journal of Archaeological Science confirms that animal fat lamps served as humanity's very first artificial light source. This specific biofuel conquered the terrifying darkness and allowed ancient minds to paint the stunning frescoes found in places like the Lascaux Caves. And when the blizzard howled outside, simply throwing a heavy animal hide over your shoulders was never enough to prevent freezing to death. The leather had to be meticulously tailored to trap your precious body heat. This is exactly where bone proved vastly superior to stone. Research from nature documented that incredibly fine bone tools, such as delicate bird bone needles and awls, appeared in Africa between 60 and 90,000 years ago. These tiny skeletal fragments were vastly more refined and complex than standard stone tools. They functioned as the ultimate prehistoric biotechnology that allowed early humans to sew airtight clothing and conquer the absolute harshest climates on Earth. The animals gave us the literal tools to build our surroundings. But the true scale of what these creatures provided goes far beyond individual survival. Now listen carefully, because the next massive shift completely rewrote the economic rules of the entire world. Look out across the vast and sweeping grasslands of the American Great Plains. For the Native American tribes inhabiting this seemingly endless territory, the bison was never merely a walking stake. That single magnificent creature functioned as their entire biological Wall Street. They operated on a strictly zero-waste economy, where every anatomical feature was a critical piece of public infrastructure. A harvested bison provided absolutely everything required to sustain human life on a treeless prairie. The animal's stomach and bladder were immediately transformed into durable and mobile water canteens. Its raw and fibrous sinew became the ultimate high-tension bowstrings. Its tough horns were carved into highly specialized agricultural tools. Do you think the sudden disappearance of these massive herds was just a simple hunting crisis? When mass poaching practically wiped out the American bison in the late 19th century, it did not just create a temporary food shortage. That targeted commercial slaughter systematically dismantled the entire economic, structural, and cultural foundation of a deeply rooted civilization. You simply cannot expect a society to survive when its entire stock market, housing industry, and primary grocery store is eradicated overnight. But this extreme level of biological dependency extended far beyond the open prairies of North America. As humanity slowly transitioned from nomadic hunting into settled farming, we discovered another invaluable resource that our domesticated beasts freely produced. And yes, we absolutely have to talk about it. According to a landmark study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the intensive use of livestock manure as fertilizer, starting roughly 10,000 years ago, fundamentally shifted the course of human history. Without animal waste constantly replenishing the nutrient-depleted soil in the Near East and Europe, early intensive agriculture would have completely and utterly failed. So yes, you can technically thank ancient cow poop for the birth of modern civilization. You are very welcome for that deeply glamorous mental image. We essentially took the gross digestive byproducts of our livestock and used them to literally build the mighty agricultural empires of antiquity. Animals did not just feed the isolated individual wandering in the freezing woods. They physically anchored the sprawling roots of human society deep into the earth. But before we step back into the comfort of the present day, we need to confront a rather uncomfortable truth about our current mindset. We exist in an era where most of us are entirely disconnected from the brutal reality of human survival. You are likely sitting indoors right now, casually adjusting a thermostat while wearing a lightweight tech fabric puffer jacket. Modern convenience has successfully erased the memory of the profound biological sacrifices required to build our climate-controlled world. Our ancestors did not conquer the freezing wilderness through sheer willpower or abstract intellect. They survived because they entered into a relentless, bloody, and deeply intimate transaction with nature. Every single comfort we blindly enjoy today is built upon a silent foundation of crushed bone, rendered fat, and sacrificed creatures. The modern metropolis is merely the final evolutionary product of that desperate ancient harvest. Humanity did not simply walk out of the prehistoric darkness and independently invent civilization. We were literally carried out of that freezing void on the backs of the animals we hunted. The very first alliance humans ever forged was not actually with each other, but with the beasts that gave us absolutely everything.